Have you ever looked at a person's life and thought, that is a perfect picture? A beautiful house, a smiling wife, a successful business, friends who laugh at all his jokes. The world seems to bend around him, as if the sun rises just to hear his morning plans. Leo Sterling was that picture. Framed in gold, hung in the gallery of our small city for everyone to admire. I admired it too. I was the one who helped paint it. My name is Elena, and for 10 years, I was the quiet brushstroke in the background of Leo's masterpiece. The business he was so proud of, Sterling Solutions, I built it with him, from a shaky idea in a dusty garage to a multi-million-dollar empire. But you've never heard my name. Leo made sure of that. To the world, I was just his diligent, quiet assistant, the helpful shadow, the one who remembered the birthdays, who fixed the presentation errors at 2 a.m., who calmed the clients he offended. He was the brilliant frontman, the charismatic genius, and I was just part of the furniture. But furniture hears everything. It sees the cracks in the walls that the fresh coat of paint tries to hide. It feels the weight of the secrets pushed into its drawers. The betrayal didn't come as a single shocking explosion. Those are almost easier to process. No, Leo's betrayal was a slow, silent gas leak. You don't smell it until you're already dizzy, until you can't remember what fresh air feels like. It started with small things, promises made with a warm hand on my shoulder. When we land the Anderson account, Elena, your name will be on the door. Partner, I promise. The Anderson account landed. My name stayed on my desk plaque. Assistant manager. Then it was, after the IPO, you'll be set for life, trust me. The IPO happened. My salary got a polite, modest bump. His bought a yacht. I made excuses for him. He's under pressure. The investors need a single face. It's just business. The human heart has a desperate talent for painting red flags beige. But the real poison, the first whiff of that fatal gas, came on a Tuesday. I was working late, as usual. Leo had left for a networking dinner. His computer, which he never let anyone touch, was pinging softly on his enormous oak desk. He'd forgotten to log off. A message preview flashed on the screen. From his personal lawyer. The subject line, Final Draft, E. Silva Severance and NDA. E. Silva. Elena Silva. That was me. My hands turned to ice. Severance? I wasn't leaving. I had built my life around this company, around him. I clicked. I know I shouldn't have, but when you see your own name in the subject line of a secret, you click. The document was cold, legal, brutal. It outlined a generous severance package in exchange for my signature on a non-disclosure agreement so vast and airtight it would have prevented me from even saying I'd once worked there. The effective date was set for 1 month later. The reason cited, restructuring and redundancy. I was being deleted, erased. After 10 years of my blood, sweat, and silent tears, I was a line item to be restructured away, and he was going to make me sign a paper to keep me quiet about it. I heard his laugh echo from the hallway. He was back, earlier than expected. I closed the document, logged out, and was standing by the filing cabinet when he walked in, smelling of expensive whiskey and cigars. "Elena, burning the midnight oil again?" he boomed, his smile wide and perfect, the same smile that had convinced investors, charmed reporters, and once, long ago, had made me believe in our shared dream. What would I do without you? That sentence, what would I do without you? It hung in the air, a cruel, unwitting joke. He had just drafted the answer. You would pay me off and make me disappear. I forced a smile, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Just finishing up, Leo. Good dinner?" "Brilliant," he said, pouring himself a drink, not offering me one. "Met with the venture capitalists from Nexus. They're ready to pour another 20 million into the expansion. The future is bright, Elena. Bright." He was celebrating the future he was planning to cut me out of. In that moment, Looking at his triumphant, oblivious face, something inside me broke. But it wasn't a shattering glass kind of break. It was a quiet, decisive click, like the sound of a single lock turning. The dizziness from the gas leak cleared. The air was still toxic, but now I could see it for what it was. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. What would be the point? He would have a smooth lie ready, another shoulder-squeeze promise. It's just a contingency, Elena, for the lawyers. You know how they are. No, I simply nodded. That's wonderful news, Leo. You deserve it. He beamed, believing my performance, as he always had. Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. You too, I whispered. As I drove home to my small, quiet apartment, a place he'd never visited, the numbness faded, replaced by a cold, crystalline clarity. This was not a misunderstanding. This was premeditated obliteration. He was going to take the empire we built and shove me out the airlock with a check to seal my lips. He expected me to be quiet, to go quietly. So that's exactly what I decided to do. My revenge would be quiet too, but mine would not be a silence of surrender. It would be the silence of a shadow detaching itself from the wall, the silence of a foundation cracking, one hairline fracture at a time, the silence before the entire house of cards he called his life collapsed in on itself. He thought he was signing my severance. He didn't know he was signing his own.
Revenge is not an emotion. It is a blueprint, a careful, meticulous architectural plan. You don't build it with hammers and rage. You build it with information, with patience, with the absolute stillness of a predator who knows its prey better than the prey knows itself. And I knew Leo Sterling. I knew the man behind the painting. The next morning, I walked into Sterling Solutions not as a betrayed woman, but as a forensic architect. My mission? To study the structure of his perfect life, to find every load-bearing lie, every weak point, every hidden fault line. And I had 1 month to do it before his restructuring took effect. My first tool was my own invisibility. Leo had made me forgettable. Now I would weaponize that. Who notices the furniture? Who watches the quiet assistant as she does her filing, makes her copies, brings the coffee? Nobody. I became a ghost in the machine of his empire, listening, observing, collecting. I started with the office. His forgotten login was a one-time gift, but over the years, I had become the default solver of every technical problem. I knew the IT admin password because I was the one who reset it for him when he forgot. I had access to the server backups, the cloud drives, the encrypted client folders. Not all at once and not without care. A few files copied to a secure drive here, a few email chains forwarded to a private account there. The digital footprints of a decade. And what a footprint it was. I found the special invoices for clients that didn't exist, funneling money into offshore accounts Leo thought were hidden. I found the manipulated quarterly reports showing investors healthy profits while the real numbers were bleeding red. He was playing a shell game, using new investor money to pay off old investors, buying himself time. A classic desperate pyramid, painted to look like a skyscraper. But the money, that was almost predictable. The true cracks were personal, the real load-bearing lies. There was Clara, his devoted wife, the perfect socialite he paraded at every charity gala. The emails I found, hidden in a draft folder tied to a secret webmail account, were to a woman named Anya. Not just love letters, plans. Anya was pressuring him. She wanted a life, a name, a piece of the Sterling picture. Leo was stringing her along with promises, just like he'd strung me along. Once the new funding is secure, once I deal with a few loose ends at the office,
I was a loose end. His wife was another. Then there was his best friend, Marcus. They played golf every Sunday, laughed like brothers. Leo called him his rock. But in the confidential merger documents for a small tech firm we'd acquired last year, I saw the truth. Leo had secretly undervalued the firm, bought it for pennies, and sold its key asset to a competitor for millions. The original owner of that firm? Marcus's cousin, who lost everything. Marcus had no idea. Leo had comforted him, blamed market forces, and even loaned him money that came from the very profit he'd secretly made. Layer upon layer, a beautiful portrait painted over a canvas of rot. But information alone is just data. It's potential energy. To become a kinetic force, it needs a catalyst. It needs to be released at the right moment, to the right people, in the right order. One domino tipped quietly can start a chain reaction that topples giants. My plan formed not in a blaze of fury, but in the cold light of logic. I called it the Silence Protocol. Phase 1, preservation. I secured all the evidence. Digital copies in multiple encrypted locations, physical printouts in a safe deposit box under a name he'd never know. This was my insurance. If he somehow sensed my moves and tried to destroy me first, the truth would auto-release to a list of pre-selected recipients. Phase 2, destabilization. This was the careful placement of the charges. I wouldn't confront Leo. I would simply introduce his lies to each other. It began with Anya, the secret lover. Using an untraceable email account, I sent her a single, anonymous message. No threats, no demands, just a scanned copy of a receipt. A receipt for a diamond necklace purchased by Leo the day before, made out to Mrs. Clara Sterling. The note attached was just one line, a gift for the other woman in his life. I didn't need to say more. The seed of doubt, of rage, of betrayal was planted. Anya, who was waiting for her own promise to be fulfilled, would now look at every word from Leo with new, suspicious eyes. She would become a variable, an unpredictable element in his controlled world. Next, Marcus. This was riskier, as he was emotionally volatile. I couldn't give him the full truth yet. Instead, I orchestrated a coincidence. I scheduled a business lunch for Leo with the lawyer from the competitor firm that had bought his cousin's asset. I made sure Marcus accidentally saw the calendar entry and the lawyer's name. A name he knew well, a name associated with his family's ruin. Then I forgot a printed memo on the office printer, a memo discussing ongoing, lucrative consultations with that same firm. Marcus found it. His confusion would fester. The rock would begin to crack. All while I performed my duties perfectly. I was the same efficient, quiet Elena. I prepared the presentations for the big Nexus Capital funding pitch. I soothed the nervous junior accountant who'd noticed a discrepancy in the books. "Don't worry," I told her with a gentle smile. "I'll handle it with Leo." And I did. I smoothed it over, reinforcing his belief that I was his loyal fixer, even as I was meticulously mapping the cracks I was about to widen. Leo was busy, exhilarated, living in the golden glow of the impending Nexus deal. He was so focused on the horizon, he never looked down at the ground crumbling beneath his feet. He'd pat my shoulder absently. "You're a lifesaver, Elena, really. What would I do without you?" The question had become my mantra. What would you do without me, Leo? You are about to find out. Because Phase 3 was approaching, detonation. But even that would not be a loud public spectacle. Not at first. True ruin,
The kind that is complete and irreversible doesn't always arrive in the dead of night in the form of a single whispered sentence that changes everything. Sometimes it's just a quiet click on a keyboard that sends an email that can never be unsent. The final piece of my blueprint required a face-to-face meeting, not with Leo, but with the one person whose belief in his perfection was the pillar holding his entire world upright. It was time to have a quiet cup of tea with Clara Sterling.
The Sterling mansion was everything you'd imagined. Imposing iron gates, a winding driveway through manicured gardens, a facade of creamy stone that spoke of old money and quiet power. It was a stage set for the perfect life. I'd been there a handful of times for company parties, always fading into the background, refilling drinks, coordinating with the caterers. Today, I was arriving as a guest, or perhaps as a surgeon. Clara had been surprised by my call. "Elena, from the office, is everything all right with Leo?" Her voice was cultured, sweet, laced with mild concern. I kept my tone light, professional, yet with a hint of personal urgency. "Everything's fine with Leo, Clara. It's more of a confidential company matter, a personal favor I need to ask about some charitable work. I'd rather not discuss it at the office." It was a flimsy pretext, but it played on her sense of charity and her role as the supportive corporate wife. She agreed. The housekeeper showed me into the sunroom. It was filled with light and expensive orchids. Clara entered, a vision in a cream linen dress, her smile polite but distant. "Elena, so nice to see you. Can I offer you some tea?" "That would be lovely," I said, my own smile calm, unreadable. As she poured, I let my eyes wander the room. Photos of them smiling on yachts, at galas with politicians, a shrine to the narrative. My heart was steady. This was not an act of malice against Clara. She was, in her own way, another one of Leo's captives, living in a gilded cage built on his lies. I was about to hand her the key. Whether she used it to flee or to lock him in was her choice. We made small talk about the weather, the upcoming charity auction. I complimented the orchids. The china was delicate, expensive. The silence between sips was heavy with unspoken words. Finally, I set my cup down. It made a soft, definitive click on the saucer. "Clara," I began, my voice low and even, "thank you for seeing me. The truth is, I didn't come here to talk about charity." Her perfectly shaped eyebrows lifted slightly. "Oh. I came because I believe you are a good person, and you are being lied to, systematically, and because the consequences of those lies are about to destroy not just Leo's company, but everything attached to it, including your life here." Her face went carefully blank, a mask of social grace snapping into place. "Elena, I'm not sure what you're implying, but if this is some sort of office gossip or drama—" "It's not gossip," I interrupted, gently but firmly. I reached into my bag and placed a single sealed envelope on the table between us. "This is a USB drive. On it you will find bank statements for an account in the Cayman Islands under the name L. Sterling Holdings. The monthly deposits correspond exactly to payments from several of Leo's special clients. The final 3 transactions are outgoing wires, one to a boutique real estate agency in Milan, one to a luxury car dealership in Zurich, and one, recurring, to an account held by an Anya Petrova." Clara's hand, holding her teacup, froze. The color drained from her face, but the mask held. She said nothing. "Anya has been Leo's mistress for approximately 2 years," I continued, my tone clinical, as if presenting a quarterly report. He has promised her a future. He has used company funds, disguised as client invoices, to finance that promise. The apartment in Milan, the car in Zurich, they are for her. I let that hang in the air. I watched her eyes. I saw the crack in the mask, a fleeting tremor of utter devastation quickly suppressed by a lifetime of training. She did not cry. She did not rage. She simply stared at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. "Why?" she whispered, the words scraping out of her throat. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the lie is bigger than an affair, Clara. The company is insolvent. He is running a Ponzi scheme, using new investors to pay old ones. The big deal with Nexus Capital, it's the final piece. He needs that 20 million not to expand, but to keep the whole illusion from collapsing for another 6 months. When it collapses, and it will, the lawsuits, the criminal investigations, the asset seizures, they will come here. This house, your accounts, everything in both your names will be frozen, dissected, and likely taken." I leaned forward slightly. "You will be left with nothing but the scandal, the betrayed wife who didn't know. The media will feast on it. Your friends, your charity boards, they will vanish. You will be ruined by association." Now the tears came, not hysterical, but silent, tracking through her perfectly applied makeup. She was not crying for the lost love. She was crying for the obliteration of her entire world, the terrifying void that was opening up beneath her feet. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice suddenly sharp, clear. The socialite was gone. In her place was a cornered animal, calculating its survival. "I don't want anything from you, Clara. I am giving you a head start, a chance to protect yourself before the walls fall. The evidence on that drive is real. You can have your own lawyers and accountants verify it. You have, I would estimate, about 3 weeks before the Nexus deal is supposed to close. Once that money hits his accounts, the clock starts ticking faster. And you? What happens to you?" Her eyes searched mine, looking for the angle, the self-interest. I gave a small, sad smile. "Leo has prepared a severance package for me. He's planning to fire me after the Nexus deal, to cut out the one person who knows too much. I've known for a month." The shock on her face was genuine. She saw the full picture then, the ruthless, surgical betrayal her husband was capable of. It wasn't just her. It was anyone who was no longer useful, anyone who posed a threat to his narrative. "You're going to destroy him," she stated, not a question. "No," I said softly, picking up my bag to leave. "He's going to destroy himself. I'm just going to remove the safety nets he doesn't know are there. What you do with your head start, Clara, is up to you. You can confront him. You can leave quietly. You can try to save what you can. But know this, the man you married, the man in these photos, he is the performance. The truth is on that drive." I stood up. She didn't move, her eyes fixed on the innocuous white envelope. "I am sorry," I said, and I meant it, for all of it. I let myself out. As I walked down the long driveway, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had planted the most powerful charge of all, not in the boardroom, not with a rival, but in the heart of his home. A betrayed wife with evidence, time, and a fierce will to survive is a force of nature. And Clara Sterling, I could now see, was not just a porcelain doll. She was porcelain over steel. The first domino had been tipped, and it was starting its slow, quiet fall toward the next. Have you ever watched a tapestry unravel? It doesn't happen all at once. One thread loosens, then another. A small pattern distorts. Then, suddenly, a whole section sags, and before you know it, the entire picture is a tangled mess on the floor. Leo Sterling's tapestry began to unravel with a single loose thread named Anya. 2 days after my visit to Clara, Leo stormed into the office later than usual. The perfect tan on his face was marred by a tight, pale tension around his eyes. A faint, angry scratch marked his jawline, carefully half-concealed with makeup. He didn't greet anyone. He slammed his office door shut. The sound echoed through the open-plan space like a gunshot. Everyone froze, then looked at me, the usual translator of Leo's moods. I simply gave a slight, confused shrug and went back to my work. But inside, I knew. Anya had received her anonymous email. The diamond necklace receipt had done its work. The secret lover was no longer a secret admirer. She was a liability, demanding explanations, making scenes. Leo's carefully compartmentalized world had suffered its first breach. The next thread came loose that afternoon. Marcus, his face like thunder, barged past Leo's protesting assistant and into his office. We couldn't hear the words through the thick door, but we heard the tone. Marcus's voice, a low, hurt roar. Leo's, placating, then defensive, then sharp. The meeting lasted 10 minutes. Marcus emerged, his eyes red, not with tears, but with a fury so deep it looked like grief. He looked at no one, not even me, and strode out. The rock had not just cracked, it had been thrown through the window. Leo emerged an hour later, trying to project calm. He called me in. "Elena, close the door." His office, usually a monument to his success, felt like a cage. He was pacing. "Marcus is having some personal issues, family stuff. It's making him irrational. If he calls or comes by, I'm unavailable. Understood?" "Of course, Leo," I said, my pen poised over my notepad. "Is there anything I can do to help?" He stopped pacing and looked at me, really looked at me, as if searching for a sign. My face was a mirror of concerned loyalty. He saw nothing. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a rare, unscripted gesture of stress. No, just keep things running smoothly. The Nexus pitch is in 2 weeks. That's all that matters. Everything depends on that." "Everything is on track," I assured him. And it was. My track, not his. The following week, the unraveling accelerated from personal to professional. A sharp, formal email arrived from the law firm representing Clara Sterling. It was addressed to Leo and CC'd the company's general counsel. It requested an immediate freeze on all joint marital assets and a full forensic audit of any company funds that had intermingled with personal accounts, citing concerns over financial mismanagement and potential marital misconduct. Leo read it on his phone during a morning meeting with the junior accountants. I saw the blood drain from his face. He excused himself, his steps uncharacteristically unsteady. Clara had not confronted him screaming. She had lawyered up. The steel under the porcelain was now a gleaming legal blade. He spent the day locked in his office, on frantic calls with his own lawyers. The news, contained for now, sent a tremor through the upper management. Whispers began. Marital assets? Forensic audit? Then, the Nexus Capital analysts arrived for their final due diligence visit. This was the last hurdle before the $20 million wire transfer. Leo was a charm offensive, but it was a strained, desperate performance. The confident genius was now a man sweating under the lights, his laughs a beat too loud, his answers a little too elaborate. And I, the faithful assistant, was there for every meeting, handing out portfolios, providing clarifying data. When the lead analyst, a stern woman named Dr. Vance, asked a pointed question about the consistent high-margin returns from a subset of clients, the fake ones, Leo began a smooth deflection. I gently interrupted, my voice soft and helpful. "I believe those are detailed in the supplemental reconciliation files, Leo, the ones that cross-reference with the offshore administrative fees." I turned to Dr. Vance. "It's a unique accounting structure we use for international tax purposes. It can look a bit unusual on the surface. I can pull those files for your team." Leo shot me a glance of pure gratitude. Yes, yes, Elena, please do. What I provided were the real files, the ones showing the money trails to the Cayman Islands. I had simply buried them in a folder named Tax Structure Legacy. It was plausible deniability. I was just the assistant fetching the requested documents. It was Dr. Vance and her sharp-eyed team who had to discover the poison in the data. They did. The next day, we received a terse email. The due diligence period was being extended indefinitely. Nexus Capital needed further clarification on several discrepancies. The funding was on ice. That email broke Leo. The performance shattered. He stood by his floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the city he thought he owned, his back to the office. His shoulders, usually squared with confidence, were slumped. The tapestry was in tatters around his feet. He didn't know it was me. How could it be? It was Anya being hysterical. It was Marcus being irrational. It was Clara being cold and greedy. It was Nexus being overly cautious. It was a series of unfortunate, independent events. Bad luck. The universe turning against him. He never once looked at the quiet furniture in the corner, the silent, helpful shadow. He called me over, his voice hoarse. Elena, I need you to prepare the severance documents for yourself and for a few others. We need to cut costs immediately. The cruel irony was almost beautiful. Even as his world imploded, his first instinct was to execute the plan to erase me. He still believed he could salvage this, restart, rebuild his lie with the people who knew too much. I nodded, my expression a masterpiece of sympathetic concern. Of course, Leo. I'll have them drafted by end of day. Is there anything else I can do? He stopped pacing and looked at me, really looked at me, as if searching for a sign. My face was a mirror of concerned loyalty. He saw nothing. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a rare, unscripted gesture of Struff's. No, just keep things running smoothly. The Nexus pitch is in 2 weeks. That's all that matters. Everything depends on that. Everything is on track, I assured him. And it was. My track, not his. The following week, the unraveling accelerated from personal to professional. A sharp, formal email arrived from the law firm representing Clara Sterling. It was addressed to Leo and CC'd the company's general counsel. It requested an immediate freeze on all joint marital assets and a full forensic audit of any company funds that had intermingled with personal accounts, citing concerns over financial mismanagement and potential marital misconduct. Leo read it on his phone during a morning meeting with the junior accountants. I saw the blood drain from his face. He excused himself, his steps uncharacteristically unsteady. Clara had not confronted him screaming. She had lawyered up. The steel under the porcelain was now a gleaming legal blade. He spent the day locked in his office, on frantic calls with his own lawyers. The news, contained for now, sent a tremor through the upper management. Whispers began. Marital assets? Forensic audit? Then, the Nexus Capital analysts arrived for their final due diligence visit. This was the last hurdle before the $20 million wire transfer. Leo was a charm offensive, but it was a strained, desperate performance. The confident genius was now a man sweating under the lights, his laughs a beat too loud, his answers a little too elaborate. And I, the faithful assistant, was there for every meeting, handing out portfolios, providing clarifying data. When the lead analyst, a stern woman named Dr. Vance, asked a pointed question about the consistent high-margin returns from a subset of clients, the fake ones, Leo began a smooth deflection. I gently interrupted, my voice soft and helpful. I believe those are detailed in the supplemental reconciliation files, Leo, the ones that cross-reference with the offshore administrative fees. I turned to Dr. Vance. It's a unique accounting structure we use for international tax purposes. It can look a bit unusual on the surface. I can pull those files for your team. Leo shot me a glance of pure gratitude. Yes, Elena, please do. What I provided were the real files, the ones showing the money trails to the Cayman Islands. I had simply buried them in a folder named Tax Structure Legacy. It was plausible deniability. I was just the assistant fetching the requested documents. It was Dr. Vance and her sharp-eyed team who had to discover the poison in the data. They did. The next day, we received a terse email. The due diligence period was being extended indefinitely. Nexus Capital needed further clarification on several discrepancies. The funding was on ice. That email broke Leo.
Silence. There is a profound power in it, in the pause between heartbeats, in the moment before a verdict is read, in the deep, still darkness just before the dawn. My revenge lived in that silence, and its final act was the quietest of all. That evening, after Leo left the office, defeated, paranoid, a ghost of his former self, I sat alone at my desk. The office was dark, lit only by the cool, blue glow of my computer monitor. The hum of the servers was the only sound. It felt like the heart of the machine, beating its last mechanical rhythms. On the screen before me was a simple email interface. Not my work account, not any account that could be traced back to Elena Silva. This was a ghost in the machine, a digital phantom I'd created weeks ago. The To field contained 5 addresses: the Securities and Exchange Commission tip line, the lead investigative reporter at the city's most respected business journal, a woman known for her dogged pursuit of corporate fraud, the general counsel of Nexus Capital, Dr. Vance's boss, Marcus's personal email, and finally, Leo's own private, secret email, the one he used for Anya and his other hidden dealings. He needed to see it arrive. He needed to know that someone knew everything. The subject line was blank. The body of the email contained no text, no threats, no gloating, no explanations. Just 5 anonymous file transfer links. Each link led to an encrypted, password-protected digital vault, and below the links, a single line. Password: what would you do without me? The irony was the key, literally. Attached to the vault were all of it: the fabricated invoices, the real bank statements showing the Ponzi flow, the emails to Anya with his promises, the legal documents showing the undervaluation of Marcus's cousin's firm, the draft severance papers for me, dated a month prior, the forensic trail, clean, clear, and damning, laid out like a prosecutor's opening argument. I had considered writing a narrative, an explanation, but the truth, presented raw and without commentary, was more powerful. It allowed each recipient to draw their own horrifying conclusions. The SEC would see a federal crime. The reporter would see the story of a decade. Nexus would see the bullet they'd just dodged. Marcus would see the betrayal of a brother. And Leo would see the autopsy of his own life. My finger hovered over the mouse. The cursor rested on the send button. This was the point of no return. Once this click was made, there would be no recalling it, no stopping the avalanche. I felt no rage in that moment, no triumph, only a deep, weary certainty. This was the necessary end of the path he had forced us both onto. I clicked. The soft whoosh of the sent email was the only sound. It was not dramatic. It was the sound of a door closing, a lock turning, a verdict being sealed. I then performed my final act as Elena Silva, assistant manager of Sterling Solutions. I logged out of my work computer for the last time. I cleaned my desk, leaving only the company-issued supplies. I placed my keycard in the center of the empty desk. I took only my personal coffee mug and a small photo of my mother. I walked out of the office, through the silent, gleaming lobby, and into the night. I did not look back. My work was done. The unraveling was over. Now came the collapse. It began before sunrise. Leo, unable to sleep, likely checking that secret email in a panic, would have seen it first. The sender, a concerned stakeholder. The subject, blank. The links, the password, a phrase he'd uttered to me 100 times, now turned into a tombstone epitaph. In that moment, he would have known. The gas leak he ignored had finally filled the house, and someone had struck a match. He would have felt a cold terror unlike any other, not the fear of a business failing, but the fear of total, personal exposure. By 9 a.m., the SEC would have been scrambling, their tip lines buzzing with this treasure trove of evidence. A formal investigation would be launched within hours. By 10 a.m., the reporter would have been on the phone with her editor, her sources, her lawyers. The story was too big, too detailed to ignore. She would start writing. By 11 a.m., Nexus Capital's lawyers would have sent a formal letter to Sterling Solutions, not just withdrawing from the deal, but threatening legal action for misrepresentation. They would also, as a courtesy and a warning, likely call their other investor contacts. The financial world is a small town. News of a sinking ship travels fast. Marcus would have opened the link, seen the proof of how Leo had orchestrated his own cousin's ruin while playing the comforting friend. His grief would solidify into a cold, hard hatred. He wouldn't confront Leo. He would go straight to his cousin and their lawyers. A civil lawsuit for fraud and damages would be drafted before lunch. And Clara was already gone. The news later reported she had filed for legal separation that very morning and was spotted boarding a flight to Switzerland, a country with very strong banking privacy laws. She had taken her head start and run, securing what she could from the wreckage. The pillar of his social life had not just cracked, it had vanished. By noon, Sterling Solutions was not a company, it was a crime scene. Employees arrived to find Leo's door closed, the blinds drawn. Phones rang unanswered. Rumors, now fueled by hard facts leaking from multiple sources, swirled like a toxic fog. The board of directors, mostly figureheads Leo controlled, were in emergency session, but it was futile. There was nothing to govern but ashes. Leo did not appear that day, or the next. His public ruin was not a single event, but a slow-motion car crash witnessed by the entire town. The reporter's article landed 2 days later. It was front page, above the fold. The headline was simple: The Sterling Illusion, Fraud, Betrayal, and a House of Cards. It laid out everything, with documents. It named names, showed transfers, quoted the damning emails to Anya. It was meticulous, brutal, and completely undeniable. The SEC filed charges the same week. Assets were frozen, the bank foreclosed on the Sterling mansion, the yacht was seized. The news vans camped outside the cheap hotel he was rumored to be staying in. Anya gave a tearful, paid interview to a tabloid, painting herself as a victim, revealing more salacious details, selling the jewelry he'd bought her. Marcus and his cousin gave a joint press conference announcing their lawsuit, their faces etched with bitter betrayal. Leo Sterling, the man who had everything, now had nothing. No money, no reputation, no friends, no family, no future. He was a pariah, a cautionary tale, a ghost haunting the ruins of his own making. And through it all, there was no dramatic villain to blame. No mysterious hacker, no revengeful rival CEO, just a series of unfortunate events, a perfect storm of exposed lies. The official narrative was that his own greed and deceit had finally caught up with him, that the pressure had made him sloppy, that he had betrayed too many people, and the truth had simply leaked. The quiet assistant, oh, she was mentioned in passing in the article. Elena Silva, a longtime assistant, was among those laid off as the company collapsed. She could not be reached for a comment. A footnote, a piece of the furniture that was removed before the house fell. No one ever linked it to me. My revenge was too quiet. It wasn't an act, it was an absence. It was the silence where my support had been. It was the hidden data I didn't protect. It was the warnings I didn't give. It was the safety net I quietly removed. He didn't see me coming, and by the time he realized he was falling, it was too late to even hear me walk away.
6 months later, I sat in a small, sun-drenched cafe in a coastal town 1,000 miles away. The air smelled of salt and baking bread, not of recycled office air and desperation. I was reading a news article on my tablet, a short, final update in the business section. Leo Sterling pleads guilty. The article detailed his plea bargain on charges of wire fraud, securities fraud, and tax evasion. Facing a mountain of evidence, he had conceded. He would serve 8 to 12 years. All remaining assets were forfeit. His sentencing statement was quoted. "I take full responsibility for my actions. I let down my colleagues, my investors, and my family. I am profoundly sorry." I wondered if, in his cell, he ever replayed that sentence he loved so much. "What would I do without you?" He had found his answer. He would unravel and fall and sit in a cold room with nothing but the echoes of his own lies for company. I felt no joy, no glorious triumph. Watching his life disintegrate had not filled any hollow space in me. The betrayal, the decade of being erased, had carved out a part of my soul that revenge could not rebuild. But the cold, hard weight of injustice was gone. In its place was a quiet, flat calm, a neutral space, a blank page. I had used my severance money, the very check he'd intended to buy my silence with, to start over. A small online business, using the very skills I'd honed managing his empire. It was modest, but it was mine. Every client, every success had my name on it. Elena Silva Consulting. No shadows, no silent partners. Sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, I would think about the others. Clara, according to society pages, was living quietly in Europe, involved in conservation charities. Her name legally reverted to her maiden name. She had salvaged a life. Marcus and his cousin had won a substantial settlement from the little that was left after the government seizures. They had started a new, small business together, a genuine partnership built on shared hurt and hard lessons. The employees of Sterling Solutions had scattered, found new jobs. The world had moved on, as it always does. Leo Sterling became a fading headline, a story people would occasionally reference. Remember that guy who had it all and lost it? What was his name? Sterling? That was the completeness of the ruin. Not just the loss of wealth or freedom, but the erosion of legacy. He was becoming a forgettable, cautionary tale. My phone buzzed. It was an email notification from a former junior accountant from Sterling Solutions, a bright woman I'd always liked. The subject line, "Thinking of you." I opened it. She was just checking in, saying she'd landed a great new role at a firm that valued integrity. She wrote, "I don't know what really happened at the end there, Elena, but I always felt you were the only real, honest thing in that whole place. I hope you're somewhere beautiful, building something for yourself. You deserve it." I smiled a little, a genuine, small warmth in my chest. That was a kind of justice, too, being remembered by the right people for the right reasons. I closed the tablet and looked out at the sea. The waves came in, relentless, washing over the sand, erasing yesterday's footprints. That was the nature of things. Nothing is permanent. Not empires, not lies, not even pain. My revenge was quiet. It did not shout its name from the rooftops. It did not dance on the rubble. It allowed the truth to have its say. And then it walked away, to a place where the air was clean and the only person I had to build up was myself. He thought quiet meant weak. He thought silence meant consent. He was wrong. My quiet was the quiet of deep water, moving with irresistible force beneath a still surface. My silence was the silence of a door closing forever on a room full of ghosts. And in that silence, I finally found my peace. The desire for revenge is a human one. When we are betrayed deeply and personally, the heat of that anger can feel like the only thing that will keep us warm. We imagine grand, dramatic confrontations. We dream of our tormentor's public humiliation, of shouting our pain for the world to hear. But sometimes, the most profound justice is not delivered with a roar, but with a whisper, not with a sword, but with a key that unlocks the cage they've built themselves with their own lies. This story is not a blueprint for vengeance. It is a reminder that the foundation of any life, any relationship, any success must be truth. Because lies are termites. They chew silently in the dark, and by the time you hear the creaking, the structure is already hollow. And it is a reminder to value the quiet ones, the people in the background who hold everything together. Their loyalty is not a weakness. Their silence is not ignorance. It is a choice. And when that choice is broken by betrayal, their departure, their quiet, deliberate withdrawal of that support, can be the most devastating force of all. Build your life on something real. Treat the people in your shadows with the respect they deserve, because in the end, the loudest downfall is often preceded by the quietest click.